live. Hey, it is August 6th, 7 o'clock, and this is Heart-Centered Marketing. My name is Joey Ragona. I've got the lovely and talented Rebecca Mountain in the house. It feels like it's been forever. She's here, you're here, hashtag live, hashtag replay, all of that funky junk and good stuff to get going because today's going to be epic. Rebecca, how you doing?
Hi.
How you do?
Just hunky spunky as ever.
Yeah, oh my
Making a
gosh, like
mess, kicking ass,
just an
taking names, all that stuff.
instant smile. Every time I see you, it's just an instant smile on my face. You know,
It's either
you
that or
just
instant murder. It kind of like runs the gamut as to what people think of when they see me. After a while, I'm like, oh, oh my
you
God.
just
My
have a
neighbor's just running by outside my house, and his little mini-me son is running beside him. That was like the cutest thing I think I've ever seen. Sorry, squirrel moment. Uh,
don't
Super cute.
apologize. I mean, that's the way these
I
calls
live in a glass
go.
house.
So,
Yep. How you doing,
uh,
Joey?
you know, I was just thinking today that we would just kind of rip through some ideas and some of the process, not even the processes, but more of our mindset around the doers and the draggers is what I'm calling this. The doers
Ooh.
versus the draggers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been going through a little bit of a shift in over the summer and
Okay.
really stepping in, not that I haven't before, but really doing some inner work and going, where does my genius truly lie? Who can I really help, and
Mm.
it's like, yeah, it's like they gotta be doers. They gotta be the doers. And I know that you are a massive doer. Like
Yeah,
you just
mega doer.
you're like, what? Hang on a minute. Just okay, I'll just
We're
buy
good.
a plane and go do this. Like so right. So I figured you would be like the perfect person to just brainstorm this with, and
Yep.
obviously we've got no script here. So what do you think?
About doers and draggers, like the
Yeah,
difference
but what the
between,
topic
or
is. Like,
well,
any
I mean, I call them givers and like so producers and takers, right? So that's Ayn Rand's book, written in 1939. Atlas Shrugged totally defined my life and made me want to be a producer from a very, very young age. Never wanted to be someone who just took and took and took, or felt I was entitled, or felt that I was deserving. It was I earned it or nothing. Like that's really
Hmm.
what it was. I mean, and there's different ways of earning it. There's working hard, there's making connections, and so on, and creating our own opportunities. So doing, I think one of the interesting misnomers about doing is that people always think you have to be like taking action, which is not necessarily the case.
Right.
Because if you're always like doing, you forget to be the thinker and the planner,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And there's a book called Mind Over Mood, which I've been reading recently because I'm doing a webinar on it tomorrow. And a lot of it talks about how sometimes one of the best things we can do is just take a breath and slow down. And by
100%.
slowing down, we actually accomplish more. Because if you
Hmm.
get too into the hyper doing, so there's doing at a frenetic pace and there's doing at a strategic and intentional pace. So I think
Hmm.
you got to be kind of really careful on that definition of doer because it can be a healthy or an unhealthy approach that people can take.
Yeah, that's
But
why I want to talk about it because I mean, I've always talked about, where I have a saying called there's a difference between sacrifice and strategic commitment. So
mhm,
a lot of people will sacrifice their stuff, and those are the doer, busy badge of honor. I'm doing
mhm,
all these kind of things, and no, you're actually sacrificing your life because you're not really
mhm,
getting anywhere because you're just
mhm,
doing stuff. And do you have a vision? Do you have a 10-year vision? Do you have the vivid vision? Like all these things. Do you know where you're
mhm,
going? Are you aimless in life or not? Because I mean, I was there for a lot of my entrepreneurial life, which is like, hey, I'm doing a lot of stuff here, but I'm not progressing at all because I had no
right.
vision at all, right?
Mhm,
So you're absolutely right, and that's kind of why I want to talk about this because I have worked with both people where there
mhm,
are the busy badge and I pulled them
Mhm.
back. And then I've also worked with people who are, I just call them draggers. They just drag around doing nothing, like whatever. And they're not really doing anything. They're pretending business. They're playing business. And that stresses me out. Like, what are you
Mhm.
doing? You're just
Yeah.
staying in your comfort. You're not really, you're just dragging your feet. You're not really doing anything. You're not making a decision. So there's a whole realm of what we can talk about
Mhm.
here and the definitions of it. So yeah, definitely. So let's go with I don't know. Where do you want to go with this? I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff in my brain.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to follow your lead on this because what we can talk about is if you're stuck in dragging mode, where the majority of people are, we can talk about different strategies of getting you out of the dragging mode. And a lot of when people are dragging has to do with nothing short of emotional dysregulation, right? So they're what they want to do, but how they feel about what they want to do are they're mismatched. And that's where people get dragged, right? When you
Hmm.
match your emotional resilience and your intention with a plan and a goal, that's when you absolutely take off. And it's like, oh, that sounds so easy. And yet people get stuck in drag mode because they know what they want to do. And I see this all the time. They know exactly what they want to do. They have a plan, they have a strategy, they have a goal, and they sit in their chairs and spin around in circles, not doing
Why?
it because they don't feel that they're worthy, because they don't think they can do it, because their thoughts sabotage their emotions, which then drags everything down. If you have a really intense emotion, it will distort how
Yeah.
you see everything else, right? So if I like have a really strong emotion, like really strong anxiety about growing my business, right? I have a big plan. I know what I need to do, and then I just get this wicked anxiety about whether I can or cannot do it. What happens is I start reading, like, I'll read something on social, and someone will post a comment. It sounds familiar. And you'll read into it, kind of going, oh my God, this person is like talking down to me, or, they're criticizing me, or they're like, about time you got here, as opposed to seeing it like it's supposed to be, like the encouraging comment that it was. Again, holler if this sounds familiar, Joey. Right? And for anyone who's
Yeah.
listening, this again, I did this to Joey many, many years ago. We have rectified the situation, which is why we're still friends.
Yeah.
But that's what it can do. It distorts your
Mm.
entire world vision. And so what you see is, instead of the encouragement, instead of the opportunity, instead of the relationship building, instead of the, money making opportunities, you see everything that is negative in between, right? And so that's that's actually what causes drag,
Mm.
because the emotion that you have is not matching the action you want to take. The behavior never happens because the thought drives the mood goes down, the action never happens. We act only based on how we feel, and how we feel in many ways can be driven by environment, it can be driven by situation, it can be driven by a series of thoughts, habitual and otherwise. It could be our social network, who we surround ourselves with. Like, I work with a lot of people and they drag because say it's a partnership. And I'm like, okay, you need to meet every day. And you need to plan for the day ahead. I call it the preloaded day, right? Totally,
Exactly.
totally ripped off the preloaded year. And I'm like, how's about we start with the day? But it's the same concept. You review what happened today. What did we get done? What did we learn? What do we need to do forward for the next day? And you plan it. You arrive at work. No decisions have to be made. And you just tootle on, right? That's how you become a doer, right? You don't make decisions. You create a series of instructions for yourself.
Okay.
And they repeatedly drag because one will be like, well, I don't feel like doing the review. I don't want to do the preloaded day thing. Do we have to do that? And then it pulls the other person down. So you
Yeah.
really have to be careful about things like partnerships, like life partnerships, and to be able to say, okay, you know what? I need to set a boundary for myself, regardless of what anyone else does or says or what they're feeling. You have to set boundaries and walls around what you believe is important, and you have to protect them. And so if you're going from a dragger to a doer, you start by building the ramparts of the boundaries that you need to set for yourself, time boundaries, energy boundaries, productivity boundaries, physical boundaries, all that kind of stuff. And you start protecting those boundaries. You say, no,
Mm.
this is what I need to do. This is what's really important to me. And when you stop erasing any of the gains you make by, acquiescing to others and being influenced by their lack of productivity or drive, then you give yourself a greater chance of being able to change your attitude. And when you change your attitude, you change your behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if I'm really set out to help like a lot of draggers. Like I'm just not.
It takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, it's like I don't have that patience, and I'm really great at um, you know, the doers. Like let's just say the busier people, like the busyness. That I'm
Mm-hmm.
really great at getting simplified. Like you're doing way too much here, and let's simplify this.
Mm-hmm.
Now the draggers on the other side, those are the ones that are hard for me because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not nothing against any human being or judgmental or anything like that. It's just that I know where my superpowers are. My superpowers are make a decision because that's what a doer is. Is like you
Mm-hmm.
decide on. I'm giving you two options here. Which one do you want to go? And there you go. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, well, what if, what if, what if? Look, let's talk about that for 5 minutes, but then let's make a decision here, and then let's
Mm-hmm.
review the results. Let's review the feedback. Okay, let's do that. And so
Mm-hmm.
those are what doers are to me. They're like, okay, whatever. I'm one of those people who, when I go into anything, into any conversation, or if I go to an event, let's say, and I'm watching a speaker or something, I'm not taking on all of the stuff. I'm waiting for the one nugget, the one thing. I'm like, holy crap, never thought of that before. And then I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of the room. I'm on the phone. I'm on my iPad. Like I'm doing this stuff, and everything else is oblivious. I'm like that doer right in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of people I love, love, love working with because I can help them. It doesn't mean I've been wrong probably 1,000 times more than I've been right, than right about doing something. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I've learned is that, entrepreneurs, the biggest entrepreneurs look for failure. They look for how can I fail fast? Fail fast,
Mm-hmm.
fail forward. Let's go. Let's put this into action. Let's get the crap out of the way to figure out what works.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the people that excite me. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking,
Well,
that's
they're the ones who like they're hard to find though. Like those ones are really really tricky
how
because
come?
they're not very many.
Really?
Yeah, you are blessed, I want to say, or doomed, depending on how you want to look at it, to a very small cohort of people, because the world is not built for doers, right? If it was, there would be a lot fewer people who have jobs, taking instructions, following a job description. They would be out there innovating, creating, fucking things up, throwing it all out, smashing it, not giving a care in the world for what anyone else thinks. But look at social media. Look what that has done to everyone's confidence,
Yeah, just
right?
want to
You want
give
a
a shout out
guaranteed
to
way.
just let me
Oh,
give a
sorry.
shout out here. Hey, how you doing? The Mind Whispers in the house. Good to see you. Thank you for being here and learning from us. Yeah, so go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to give props up.
That's okay. Absolutely. I forgot what I was saying, but yeah. So
There's not a lot of doers in the house. They'd be out
there really
there.
aren't. There really aren't because if the world was honestly, if the world was full of doers, it'd probably explode. Um, but because you do need a balance of doers, and I would call them like I wouldn't call them draggers, but I call them like average producers, right? Because there's a place for everyone at every level of ambition, at every level of income, at every level of drive, right? Certain people have a greater tolerance for uncertainty than others. That is
Exactly.
cultivated. So doers have an incredibly wide band of tolerance. So within the band of tolerance is how much fluctuation can you handle, right? And the more you try and fail and then get up and try again, the wider your tolerance bands are, right? And you're able to handle more and more and more. Like I wrote a third book in 2 weeks, designed to cover on Canva. Again, there's three of me. Woot woot. You know, and I threw it up there, and I just don't care. Why? Because I already have two. Because I've already tried with one. The one I'm like, just it's a good book, but don't really read it. You don't need to buy that one. But you can buy that one. That one's really good. That one you can buy anywhere books are sold. Dragon and the Goat, super, super awesome, really, really great. But I decided that I needed to do a third, so I just wrote this little bad boy in 2 weeks, right? Why? Because I'm not scared of trying anymore. But there was a time when I was scared to open my mouth, when I was scared to put my neck out, when I was double checking absolutely everything, and I was way more of a dragger than I am today because I had so much fear. I had so much
I don't know, like ever
anxiety.
since I've known you though, you've been like a doer. Like just give me the thing and I'm gonna go do it.
I was not always like that.
Okay, but that brings me to my point. And you're absolutely right that there are a lot more people who are just regular producers. They're happy with what they're not what they're doing or whatever. And so what I'm trying to really get at here is like where does your superpower lie? And for everybody else listening is who are the people that you've been put on this planet to help? Like for me,
Oh,
it is though are those people. And so the people who are not yet ready for my superpower, that's totally
mhm,
cool. They can learn and become a Rebecca. You're in that zone and then you became a doer in my
mhm,
version of it. And I'm like, great, I
mhm.
can help Rebecca, no problem. Right. So, but it doesn't mean I don't talk to them. It doesn't mean I don't help them. It's just like they are not ready. And so it that's where I'm really trying to get this conversation to is like, where do you focus and how can you help us or everyone listening to figure out who it is that they can certainly help. It sounds to me like you have way more patience of dealing
Mhm.
with somebody who is dragging things out, taking more time to get
I
to.
see, and it's possible I have more patience because I see myself in them.
Mm,
So because I've
yeah,
learned to have patience with myself, I have
I got
patience
it.
with them. I have empathy. And that's often where our area of genius is. A lot of what we strive to do comes from something that we have striven against and won at. So I consider myself a breakthrough specialist. So you've got a barrier, you're up against it. You're like a bee on the window, and you're like, I can't get through this fucking thing. And you can see what's on the other side, but you're just not quite sure. Or you have an idea of like what the problem is, but you don't know how to open the window, right? Um, and so where I like to step in and help people is to say, what is it you're striving for? Like, 'cause so they have a vision, they have a commitment, they're tired of being where they are, they're ready to break through, but they just don't know, how to open the window. My job is to help them open that window,
But isn't
right?
that a
Find
doer?
that barrier. Not always, because usually when they're doing this against the window, they're dragging.
Yeah, but that's where you meet them.
That's where I meet them. But how do you
That's
know
but
that someone's going to continue? Like there are people who like dong 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 dong, and you're like, please stop, and they're like, no, this is fun. I like this. This is great. Dong dong dong, and they complain and they complain and they complain and complain and complain and complain, and
right,
they give themselves a massive headache. But they're not actually committed to change. And the way that I
right,
know
and
is
that's a
because
dragger in
they're
my view.
there's a dragger, and the difference between a dragger and a breakthrough option, like an opportunity, is someone who is complaining versus containing, right? So someone who
Yeah,
is destined to be a dragger, you listen for blame. It's not my fault. I didn't do it.
right.
Everyone else has got it. And those are the ones, as soon as I hear that language, I'm like, bye-bye. Like I
Okay,
can't,
so we're on the same page
can't
here,
help.
Rebecca. We're on the
Mhm.
same page.
Oh, I know we're
It's
always on the same page. We're
just
getting
different
to the same
semantics in the
people.
context of how we're
Absolutely.
describing this, right? But that's exactly it. Like if I'm on the other side of the glass and I see somebody pounding and going,
Mhm,
dude, I got you. Like just come over here and I'll show you how to get through. And they're like, okay, let me try. And they don't, and they never want to break through, but
mhm,
they're listening on the glass. I really can't hear you. Can you shout louder? I'm really not
mhm,
hearing you. Like, so,
mhm,
that's enough. Like when you're ready to break through, I'll give you the glass cutter and you'll get through no problem whatsoever.
mhm,
So they're the
mhm.
draggers. That's what I'm saying. I can see them all, but it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I forget who was that said this. I want to give the right respect, but I think it was anyway. I can't remember, but anyway, it wasn't mine. The quote is this, and I'll never forget it, which is amazing. If you have to drag them in, you have to drag them around.
Mhm,
If you have to drag them in, you have to drag them around. And that's what I used to do is try to drag people in. Come on,
mhm,
like this, come on, right? and write the
Mm-hmm.
best copy to get them in. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'd be dragging them around. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
ah. And so I
Yep.
just realized that just that's not where my energy needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk up a storm 24/7 on the other side of the glass, through the glass, to talk to all the people over here. And when you're ready, you jump across and let's go. But once you cross into my world, you got to go. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that? Is that where you are?
Yeah, and then the other thing to also understand about anyone, even doers, is eventually they're going to hit the dip. And
Right.
the dip is also where they've started, and they're like, yeah, they have all the enthusiasm in the world, and then they go into sort of the dip that you know, inform what's it called, informed optimism, and
Yeah.
sorry, uninformed optimism, all that kind of thing,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. It's like, yay, okay, this is getting better. Whoo, that was all right, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
it's
it
also
that
called the Valley of
happens.
Despair. Like I've said that to many people where whenever they get into any type of program, coaching, you name it, anything, starting a business, writing a book, right, is like, oh, this is amazing, but they're starting at the top when they think they're starting at this bottom, going higher, but they're
Oh
not.
yeah,
They're
no,
already at the height,
no,
and they're
no.
on their way down to the first crash, dip, whatever it is. They don't understand that, but you and I, we do. And so,
Mhm.
but a doer, like it's totally cool. You can be in the swamp of despair. I'm like, oh God, I gotta get out of this. I'm in the mud, whatever. It doesn't mean that we're constantly super people. Like, no,
Mhm.
everything's fine, everything's good. No, that's not what I'm saying. But a doer is like one of my coaches many years ago said to me, dude, you're allowed to mope. I'll give you permission to mope. And
Mhm.
when he said that to me, because I thought I had to be Superman, I'm like, what? Like, okay. And so I moped. Like I was
Mhm.
down for like 2 or 3 days, crying my eyes out and nothing's working, all that kind of stuff. It's when you get stuck in that the problem
Yes.
is there.
Yeah. It's
You
when you
can
decide
mope.
to live there.
Yeah, when
Mhm.
you live there, that's not a good thing.
No,
And that's
and
where
then I like
draggers
to
are at.
ask people, like, how they're feeling and all that kind of stuff. One of my most important questions: how long have you felt this way?
Mm, that's a
And if
good
they're like,
question.
I've been here for 10 years, I'm like, beep. Right? Because I'm like, yeah, you need therapy, not a
That's
coach.
a good question.
Um,
That's such a simple but powerful question.
it's a really good one. And then you just listen for language. So I listen for blame. And then the other question, which is really telling, and it's interesting how honest people are with this question, is that if I could give you a strategy that would get you from where you are to where you want to go, scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to making that happen?
Hmm.
You only take someone at a 9. And it is incredible how many people will say 5.
Yeah.
And then you're like, let me know when it gets to a 9. Beep. I mean, you need to hang up on a lot of people. You're like, whoa. No, that's a hot bag of
uh,
doo doo. I don't need to touch. Right. Because those are the people that you would have to drag along. So you have to understand, like, what are the dragger flags? Right.
exactly.
Right. So, that would be people who complain, people it's not my fault, it's not commitment, so lack of commitment. People who, when you try to talk with them about what they're feeling, and you're like, but what about this? They go right back into all the hardships and horrible things that have been done to them. And you're absolutely right. Rent is cheap is a lousy neighbor, and yet people stay there. I mean, I say people are waiting for the bus of life to show up, and they're all just waiting there, the bus of manifestation, right? Because I pick on manifestation because people think that if I think it, it will come. It's like, well, not really. It's like you got to think it and then move towards it,
Yeah.
and then it'll start showing up,
Take some
right?
action on it as well. Do some
Right.
change something in your life.
Just do
Yeah.
something.
I'm doing this thing and I'm doing this manifestation thing, and I don't think it's going to work. You just counteract. You just counteract the whole thing. You're supposed to be manifesting, thinking the future, thinking of great things, and then you say, "But I think it doesn't work." I've had that. People say that to me all the time. Like, are you crazy? Just
No,
stop it.
okay, but here's the thing. It's manifestation with action, with some sort
Yeah.
of movement, right?
Yes.
So I had a client of mine, and we worked for like 60 days on getting her a new admin, getting her set up and ready. She was so happy. And then the admin quit. She had lied about whether she was looking for another job. And it's worse when you have relief and then you have that taken away from you again. She really went into a dip, like a really, really
Yeah,
big
I
dip.
would
And
too.
so, of course, because it's very upsetting. She's so busy, she's turning work away, like crazy busy, incredibly successful person. Now, like, what the fuck? And I'm also like, well, here goes my coaching client, right? So, what can I do? And the only thing that was one thing that I kept her going on, and I'm like, you just have to go about this a little bit differently, right? You still have to put out the Indeed job description, but make your changes, right? Because she needs
Yes.
someone very specific. So instead of getting
Yes.
100, people submitting in, she got like 8. And I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
because there were only really 8. There weren't 100. It
Exactly.
sounds great, but there were never 100 because you really just needed the 8. And then those 8 weren't really working. And I'm like, well, then you go onto social media, you go and you call a friend, you go and you call your broker, you reach out to so-and-so, you network, you do this, you do this, but you always have to move towards them. Well, I don't think it's going to work. I'm like, who knows what's going to work? Just go do it. And to her credit, she did. And quote unquote, out of the blue, this person came forward. So what happens with manifestation, with movement, you have to have the
Yeah,
two,
exactly.
is you actually start showing up differently in the world, but you don't recognize you're showing up differently in the world. So the reticular activation system, I'll give you an example. Mark and I thought for a while there we were going to buy a place in Aruba. We're just interested, scouting around, seeing what it was going to be like. But we didn't know whatever. And we were down there on vacation. Now, our hotel had a private beach. It was only for the hotel, but you could, I think, buy tickets to get on there or whatever. Anyway, so Mark and I are there. We're walking along the beach, and he has his, Kansas City Raiders. We love the Chiefs. Thank you very much. So we're walking along the beach, and this guy sitting on a chair says some yabba yabba remark, and he's wearing a Steelers hat. Well, the Chiefs and the Steelers were playing that Sunday, so we start tippy tippy chat chat, whatever. We decide, because now remember, we had gone down to Aruba thinking maybe we want to buy something, but we really don't know where. So in the course of the conversation, we're like, where are you guys staying? Oh, well, we own in wherever they owned. And there began the whole discussion. Oh, really? You own here? What did you do? Da da da. Turns out it was one of the biggest Remax agents on the island, right? And so he knew
But he's a
everything there
Steelers
was to,
fan.
and he's a Steelers fan. So we'll forgive him the Steelers fan thing, but that's okay. Everyone's got a loser team. Bomb drop. Anyway, so
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll
that's
just go
okay.
with it. Okay.
Someone listening to this is going to be like, "Argh!" So if you get a hate mail, it's me. Anyway, but the point is, we never would have had that really great discussion and gotten connected with a realtor and all that
Mm,
kind of stuff down there if we hadn't gone down there with a thought kind of in our minds already of, I
yeah.
wonder where we should go. So you start having conversations you wouldn't necessarily have
Yeah.
because you have that thought in your brain. You've turned your brain on to pay attention to those things. Otherwise, that conversation was Steelers, KC, shake hands, go away, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's as far as it goes. So manifestation does work because it tells your brain what you want it to pay attention to, but actualizing something out of manifestation, so not just sitting there and wishing,
Yeah.
actually doing
Right.
and
Right.
accomplishing is a combination of putting out into the world what you want more of and then moving toward it. You want to have more friends? Be a friend first. You want people to be more grateful to you? Be more grateful first, because that tunes your brain into that's the most important stuff in the world. And these are the traits and characteristics and behaviors that you wanted to pay attention to. And
Yeah.
that's why it makes you feel like the world is more grateful for you. The world is a friendlier place, and so on and so forth. So we
Yeah.
create the world by not distorting it with our feelings. So again, we come back to emotional resilience. I just started watching a show on ancient Rome, and you know what the emperor said? Emotional resilience is what's going to win the day. I shit you not. I'm like, I'm going to quote that guy, emperor, can't remember who. But if it worked in ancient Rome, pretty sure it's going to work today.
Yeah, see, like everything you're talking about there is has a lot to do with the goal setting and moving toward the goals and achievements or whatever you want to do. Even when I was because you do become a different person for sure. When I started, because I'm building my team as well, so I now am building the team because you just brought it up, and I thought this was a great example of this. But when I didn't have a team, I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted the team for. Still, I'm still learning, but when I started building Notion out and putting all my stuff there, that was like 2 years ago. I started this, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I taking all this time off? Why am I taking, back? Why is the business on this part of the business taking a backseat to this thing? Well, because this is what this is going to do for me. So my brain or my vivid vision and everything was there, except there was no person to help me. There was nothing there. Lo and behold, 2 years later, again, out of the blue, the right person shows up, and everybody that I'm showing, they're like, holy crap, like you really have a lot of stuff in place. I go, yeah. And they're mesmerized by it. Well, there's nothing spectacular about it, but they're already on board with it because of the stuff that I've built over time and being able to easily get somebody in my life. Now, to your other point, I want to really address this. This is kind of off topic, but I mean, let's talk about this is where we go. We just talk about cool things that come up. To your in parallel to what happened to your client about losing the assistant. So I've had a couple of assistants who I've been through, and every single time it was dang it, they don't want to work for me. Okay, whatever. And every time the conversation back and forth in Slack, as I'm explaining like myself to the person, I'm like, wait a minute. What happens? I take that and I put it into a Google Doc. So now my Google Doc is not only the stuff that they need to do, but there's also a huge section, like a page long, of like, this is who Joey is. This is what Joey expects. This is the good parts about Joey. This is the not so good parts about Joey. If you can't accept all of this, then don't apply for this position. So to your point, it's like, okay, out of all the 800, there's probably going to be 8 who are going to say, yeah, maybe I can take this on. So I'm very, very specific because it's only going to waste my time to bring somebody on, train them, do things, and maybe it's a week later or a month or 6 months, and they're like, yeah, I'm really, I can't handle this, right? Dang it, now I gotta do it all over again.
Yep, I had to let someone go for that reason.
Yeah, it's
right. A couple of weeks ago, it's just a little bit of overselling on their part, and a little bit of strategic vision that just never came to fruition. And it's just like, yep, we need to go. Yep, it's not going to work. I need to take another direction. I've got 2 people on my team. I'm looking at potentially adding a third, but with great care, because it would be a coach, right? Someone would help me as I grow, and I can maintain most of it myself, but I need to sow the seeds of getting someone to help me out, because eventually I will need it. But,
right on.
It's a matter of sometimes, even as we manifest and we're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need, it might be a false start. But that's okay too, because in all of these things we learn, like my client who had the admin that left, and I'm like, but now that first list you have, you got to throw it out, because even the short list that she had of the people that she eventually hired from, they're not the ones she can hire from. They were all going to end up being a dud. So I don't even know about the person that she just hired, because it was just been really quite sudden. But she seems extremely thrilled, and I think it's going to work out really well. But yeah, like you just don't know.
Yeah, and that's another part of a doer. I think that we're always learning. We're always looking at what's the next thing I can learn, and not necessarily in the business, but sometimes about ourselves or about hiring people. So I don't look at any of those as failures. I look at them as they were necessary to go through to get the person that I have. Like I have one now who is an excellent task person. Like that's all that she is for. Like I give her one thing. She goes in, watches the walkthrough thingy, and like it's done. And before I can say, "Are you on it?" she's like, "I'm done now. Like, what's the next task?" I'm like, "What?" So it's so brilliant, because that's who I want. I want somebody like that. Now, I had to get there learning that, okay, that person, I can't have a unicorn for that. Like there's like a unicorn for me would be like, you're my executive assistant and you're handling all of these things, and you're also taking care of all of these projects and getting them all done. Like that's probably not going to happen. But that's when my brain was. It was like, get this person, and then understanding that no, that's not who she is. It was like breaking free of that, and that's not a failure. It's more, okay, I need 2 people, right?
Yeah.
You go do this, and I'm going to look for somebody over here. And to me, that's continuous learning about yourself, learning about your business, right? And it's even adapting. Like doers, Like we adapt. Like I'm sure you adapt like all day
Mhm.
long, right?
Yeah, I
But a
do.
dragger doesn't adapt. That's why they
A
keep
dragger
hitting the
doesn't
dang
want
thing.
to. Yeah, I mean, a dragger is someone who is actually weirdly content dragging themselves along. They're
Yeah.
okay with it. At some level, it serves them. If
Yep.
they took a minute to find out why this negative thing is actually serving them, then they could get past it, right? But that's therapy, not coaching, right? Therapy is how did you get here? Coaching is how do you get there, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you need a little combination of both. I know I have
Yeah. I was
both.
gonna
I have
say because that's
coaches
kind
and
of
I have
interesting.
therapists.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because when I look back at that, I've found myself as a dragger to a point where I was like dragging around the past. Well, I've
Mhm.
tried that before, or I've tried something like that. And then my coach would be saying, just go do this now. I'm like, So I'm dragging around the past, dragging around things that didn't work before, but not willing and unwilling to do something brand new or something similar to it, adjacent to it.
Mhm.
And so by breaking through, you know this, is
Mhm.
like, well, maybe I should give that a try. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100% that it's going to work. It's just
Mhm.
go do this so we can
Mhm.
find this out. So I'll give you an example of this. Like I was as you know, like in 2016 to 19, I was in the very assertive, aggressive marketing world type of thingy and didn't like it. My heart and my head were fighting all the time and I just did not like that kind of stuff. And so now I'm in, you know, expanding the business, bringing some of the elements into my life. Anyway, yeah, just some of the elements that are almost parallel to some of the things. And I'm looking at it and I hear myself shutting down. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. I did that before. However, I look back and look at it and say, hang on a minute. Then I didn't have these things in place. Now I have this thing in place. And a perfect example is a frickin' program that works. Like I've got a
Mhm.
program that absolutely crushes it. Like I know it works. Then I didn't. Then it was like me guessing. It was like trying
Mhm.
all of the things and
Mhm.
piecing together all the duct tape of how to
Mhm.
get clients and all these kind of things and the models and the this and the that and putting it all together and going, this stuff doesn't work. All I'm doing is getting people on calls and trying to convert them and all these other kind of things, right? Where I had nothing to go to because I had nothing to prove or nothing. Sorry, I didn't have anything that was working, proof of working, proof of
Mhm.
concept. Now I have the proof of concept, completely different thing. So it doesn't mean you
Mhm.
go back to and go, let me do all that all over again. No, you take what resonates and
Mhm.
move on and try something brand new that maybe is adjacent to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I wrote 3 books. So that one was 40,000 words. That one is 55,000 words. This one is 13,000 words,
Hmm.
right? Because I wanted a book you could read in an afternoon. So I gave you like one simple concept, not a hell of a lot of stories. And I did it mostly for my clients, right? Because I'm like, they need to
Sure.
learn this shit. No idea if that's going to work. No idea if that's a good idea. No idea if that's going to like completely bomb and be the worst thing I ever came up with. But at a certain stage, you just stop caring what other
Oh
people
yeah.
think, which is a big reason why people drag. One of the biggest reasons is
Yeah.
they drag because they're worried about what other people will think. If I don't make $1 million, I'm not successful, right? That's big in my world, the coaching world. Um, if you don't have a team, you're not successful. If there's a whole bunch of things that like these just what appear to be almost like random measurements of success. They're not my measurements for success. So why do I care? Why do
Hmm.
I care? Right. So when you look at it that way, um, it's just you just stop well, you stop worrying about it. Everything is a test. I'm a scientist. I'm an action scientist. I'm a breakthrough artist. I'm an action scientist because I'm just like, ooh, try that. Ooh, like, oh, wow, that, I'm just going to bury that over there in the corner.
Right.
and,
Exactly. That
and that
didn't
didn't
work.
happen. Like, do. Like, I have businesses I have buried in the corner. I'm like,
I
well,
hear
we're
you.
just not going to do that again.
Yeah.
But I learned from that one as to like what I need to do. So the business I have now and how healthy it is now and how aligned it is, the results that I'm getting for clients. I introduced a new scoring mechanism to my coaching program, which is I had whenever anyone comes in, they do an assessment. They answer basically 72 statements. It's broken up, so it's not like it sounds a lot, but actually it takes you 8.4 minutes, if you're wondering, to do it all. Anyway, and then red, yellow, green. Red, not like me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow, sometimes. Green, totally like me. So they'd done that at the beginning. Recently, I added scoring to it. And then from when they started with me, like some started back in February and March to today, they do it again. And now I
Yeah.
can say, look at your progress.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I first began the assessments, like I didn't know if anybody would even do them. They're like, everybody but one person did. We'll go to that when they just didn't want to do it. And I'm like, fine, who cares?
Yeah, the assessment thing is a huge thing because that's one of the things where, because a lot of people I work with have like abstract things, like, oh, they're going to feel better, or they're going to, how can we measure that? And you measure it with assessments. So I'm adamant about the assessment. So even if you go through Atlas, like, 5 times, back to back to back to back to back, you're still doing assessments, but front end, back end, front end, back end, front end, back end, because I want to know, where were you? They should be, if you're doing it back to back. The first one should be like the last, the end one. But then I'm always looking for, where's the growth? What's happening? I want you to see the growth. I want you to do the assessment. So you're absolutely right there. And by the way, Greg, I don't know if you were here, Craig. I should say, not Greg. Craig. Apologize. If you were here at the I don't know if you listened to us about the dip, because maybe you are not a dragger. You are just a doer who is in the dip, who is in the swamp of despair. You're just doing stuff, and you went up, and then you slid down, and you're in this swamp, and you're just trying to get out again. Dang it, that didn't work. And you kind of feel down on yourself a little bit. Would that sound right, Craig? Let us know.
Yep.
Let me get rid of that one. There we go. By the way, let us know, #live or #replay if you're watching us on the Facebooks, because right now, if you're in the group, by the way, if you're in my Facebook group, I can't see the messages. I still haven't figured this dang thing out of me to... Have you figured that? Are you streaming, by the way, Rebecca, to Facebook?
Nope. No, I'm locked out of Facebook right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't do anything. I just had the 2-factor authentication, didn't get the memo that they were doing away with it. Now I can't find 2-factor authentication. So anytime my computer resets, because it does that every once in a while when I haven't logged out in like 2 or 3 months, I have to go through this whole rigmarole, and now I'm stuck in a loop, and I don't know if I'll ever get back in. So no, I don't use Facebook. I can get it on my phone still. I just can't get it on my desktop. So I can't get into Messenger, and I can't get into Facebook on my desktop.
Dang it. Sorry about that.
So, it's okay. I use Slack. I just got out of it entirely, and I'm like, fuck it. I'm just like,
yeah. Well, anyway, I just can't. I don't know how to see the messages if you're on my Facebook group. I apologize for that if you're typing in and why isn't he answering me? I'm not ignoring you. Just can't see them. So yeah. So Craig says yes. Maybe that's true for him, that he is in the dip. So you slid down. You're doing stuff, and things happen.
Just keep doing. Like, that's the only way you're getting out of that. You just keep going. You keep going and going and going with literally sometimes it feels like blind faith that this thing is going to work. Like, I don't know how many times I've had conversations with Mark, and I'm like, maybe I should just become a Walmart greeter and just forget it and just stop. And he's like, you would scare everyone. You'd get fired. And I'm like, yeah, I don't play nice in the sandbox. I would get fired probably in a day. But it can feel really, overwhelming but overthinking is under feeling. So if you're in an overthinking mode and that's what's keeping you in, a bit of a funk, I would challenge yourself to say, but what do you really feel about this? And are your feelings actually dragging you down? And if so, you can use your thoughts, and you can use your environment, and you can use your physicality to actually change the way you feel. Like, a good run is actually one of the best ways of feeling better. Any kind of exercise can completely alter a mood.
Yeah,
smiling, telling yourself jokes. There's lots of stuff you can do. I'm teaching a whole hour-long class tomorrow on this, which is going to be really neat. It's called Mind Over Mood, which I totally ripped off a book, which I'm totally going to give credit for, so I'm not going to steal the idea. Greenberger and Pasecki, I think, are the 2 authors that wrote it. It's a great book. Currently reading the chapter on anger, guilt, and shame, because they're like, if you have, I think there's anxiety, depression, and anger, guilt, and shame. And I'm like, ooh, I pick option 3. That's me. Ding, 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 all day long. Just because of the way my past and all the kind of shit. But yeah, so you can actually, through various different strategies, and one thing that's really important, I'm just going to go, because sometimes what draggers think is they're like, think positive, think positive. Well, thinking positive, and this is from Bill O'Hanlon, who wrote, how many books did he write? 41 books, over 1 million copies sold. He was on Oprah. He came in and he spoke to my group last year, and he said, thinking positive is the equivalent of holding a pile of crap in your hand and spraying it with glitter. It still stinks. It's still shit. Like, it's still garbage, and you don't want to hold on to it. But you're like, what do I do with it? So thinking positive can actually be, especially if you're intense in your emotions about how you're feeling in the dip or in your funk, it can actually be detrimental, and it can keep you there. So it's a combination of looking at it from all angles. Is there an environmental situation that you can change, right? So maybe you need to work from home. Maybe you need to get out of your home office. Maybe you need to change the people that you're around. Maybe you need to set boundaries, to say no to people, so that you can create space for more positive thought processes, right? So there are ways that you can do this, rating your emotions. Well, first of all, let's back that train up. Naming the emotions you have, rating the strength and the intensity of those emotions, asking yourself, like, what is the catastrophic feeling and thoughts that you have? And then asking yourself, are those really true? Like, is it really going to happen? And what
Yeah.
would be a more reasonable explanation or interpretation or an approach? And then what would happen if you held on to your current way of thinking? And then what would happen if you took the more reasonable approach? And then what can you do about it? So it's a process actually from the anxiety world called detective thinking. And the thing that I'm presenting tomorrow is a combination of the CBT detective thinking process, the mind over mood process, and my own process. I've kind of merged all three together into like a step-by-step process, to use the word over and over again, that allows you to move out of those overwhelming feelings of being stuck, of dragging, of despair, of depression, of distraught, and into more of a position of, well, there's something I can do about it. Because as soon as a dragger feels that, they're like, I can do that. Doesn't matter how small it is, right? If you can get them to say, I can do that,
Yeah,
you've moved them
that's
from
where
dragging to doing.
that they become a doer, and because a
Yeah.
doer is a growth mindset. That's what it is. It's always about a growth mindset. You're looking at yourself. You're looking at what can I do to get out of this. So you're looking for everything you just talked about is like, what are the options I have here? So it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you're always constantly looking at you're always positive, you're always happy and all that, but
Mhm.
that's another trait of a doer,
Mhm.
which is they have this growth mindset. They're
Mhm.
not
You know
stuck
what else
in
they
their
do?
old fixed mindset.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you because I had a wicked thought. So I was
Go
going
ahead.
through, because I've been researching this past couple of days for my talk tomorrow. And thank you, by the way, Mind Whisperer. I think you're awesome too. Um, Doers do not have necessarily a happier disposition or a more positive thinking process than
Right.
draggers. They have better coping mechanisms.
Yeah. That's a
That
good, yeah,
is the difference,
good
because
distinction.
they go through, because, well, think about it. Doers go through more failure than draggers, right? Why?
100%.
Because they've learned to cope with it. They're like, oh, ooh, that hurt. Patch yourself up, and away you go. Like, I got a baseball to the face, about a month ago. And I know I've told you this story, but I was a grounder. It Mach 2 right into my face,
Mocked.
ruined my face. Really, really gross. I actually have permanent damage. Like, I have scar tissue inside. I'll never get rid of. So now I always feel like I have a pea stuck under my lip, which is really gross and really weird. Drives my ADD nuts. Anyway, so I get this smush to the face. Now, most people, which what I've been told, would have been like, I'm out. I was forced to sit out for one inning. I'm like, I don't run with my face. I'm fine, right? And by fine, I was like bleeding profusely everywhere. My lip was like near giant. But I didn't crack my teeth. They were all there. I didn't break my nose. It didn't hit me up in the eye. It just got me like right here. So I put a Band-Aid on it, and I'm like, well, this looks dumb, because you can't play baseball when you're like openly bleeding. Apparently
Right.
it's bad. So I
Yeah.
put a Band-Aid on this thing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, this looks dumb. And so I'm like, anybody got, like, I'm going to turn it into a mustache. Because anybody got a pen, right? And someone said, I don't want better. I've got hockey tape. So we went from what was going to be the Hitler mustache, we decided that was a bad idea. So we went for the handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
So we twizzled it around here. And I'll
That's
find the picture
classic.
for you. Oh,
That's
it was
classic.
absolutely hilarious. And I did that because, you know what? Um, it was better than just kind of rolling over and playing dead.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's me. I don't know if you can see me, my
Oh my
handlebar
God, that
mustache.
is hilarious.
Yeah. So I played the whole game like that. And as a joke, they all called me Mario, right? So because I had my red KC hat on. And at the end of the year, we have the playoffs. This is women's league. Clearly men would never do this, but it's super fun for women. We actually have a theme, and you show up to the playoffs in a theme, right? Well, our theme is now Mario Kart, and I am Super Mario,
Yeah, you're
clearly.
Super Mario.
So
I love it. I love
everyone's a
it.
different character, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Like, that is the doer
But
mentality, the coping mentality. If I never learned to deal with pain, maybe I was really embarrassed, right? Because I got the ball with my face instead of my glove. Bit of a problem. You don't really get anybody out by catching a ball with your face, by the way. They
not even
score.
if it sticks, like if it's stuck in your
No,
teeth.
no, they scored and
Wow,
it was awful.
it's
I think
got
we
to be
got
in the
6
glove.
runs. Yeah, well, the other team was like, "Oh, that's too bad. Is she still down? Okay, and keep running. Okay. Thanks, guys. That's great." Anyway, but you know what? Like, I've learned to cope with those kinds of situations, and I
Right.
cope with it with humor. If it was really bad, obviously I'd have trucked myself off to the hospital, but it wasn't. I knew I had my teeth. I knew I had my nose. I knew I had my eyeball and all this kind of stuff. And I now wear a mask. But like the doers, and I think this is a really big distinction. If you can cope with your life and with all that life throws at you, you're going to be okay. Right. So it's like my younger sister has no children. I have four. Right. If I was to pick up my four children, thump them on her front lawn and go, have at it, let me know how it goes. No coping mechanism, zero coping mechanism. She was not prepared. She didn't ask for it. Right. And it would be just like, it would be a disaster, right? But over the 21 years I've had children, I've been able to develop more of these strategies on how to work with kids. My son, of course, has autism,
Yeah.
and he's going into his last year of high school and just struggles sometimes with paying attention and not getting distracted with devices, right? So I got him a group of people for him to work with. He met with them today, going like gangbusters. They got on, it was great. Da, da, da. I'm teaching him how to cope with his anxiety without using technology as a
Right.
crutch.
Now, is there a difference between, because a lot of what you said, some of the things I would call it problem solving as
Just
opposed
another
to
name.
coping.
Just
Same
another
thing.
name. Same thing.
Yeah. So like because I'm a huge problem solver.
That's
Uh,
your coping mechanism.
yeah, maybe it is. I love problem solving, but here's the thing though, Rebecca. Um, Sometimes I get really uh angry at somebody, like if you're interrupting me when I'm doing a problem solving thing, like
Mm-hmm.
right in the moment, right? So if for example, you might say to me, uh, I don't know, help me get onto Facebook. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let me open your computer, and you're like, yeah, but I tried that. Like if you start doing that, I'm like, dude, like I'm just starting here. Like let me figure this all out. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where again, that I have to understand this because I can't do my job, right? I can't
Right.
do my job. So I'm like, I'll solve the problem or get real close to the problem. Just leave me alone for a little while. Let me figure
Yep.
this all out. I don't know. How do you deal with it? So I'm not
What
great
I
at,
do is
because
I
I would
tell
say
people,
coping. I don't deal with coping very well if the person's on top of me like that.
right. So what I do, this comes down to communication and
Perhaps.
boundaries and
Yeah.
expectations, right? So if you know going into a certain situation like that, like someone's going to have to get asked for your help on something kind of that's going to require you to go through multiple steps. You go in there, so your coping mechanism, right, is to develop a set of expectations. You're like, okay, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're not going to talk over me, and you're going to leave me to do my shit. And if you've done it before, it's fine. But you can't stonewall me. So because if you stonewall me, I'll ask you once, I'll ask you twice if the call is over. All right. Are we
God,
clear
yeah. So
on these
you're absolutely right.
expectations?
I do not set those boundaries. It's like because I don't go in with a set of like when I'm problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
I'm spaghetti on the wall. Let me throw
Mm-hmm.
all the options and I'm moving things around. And usually I'll hit something that somebody is like, I've already tried that one. Like, cool it. Like just let me just right. So you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It's absolutely my fault. Like here's how
Mm-hmm.
this is gonna run. So thank you for that. I'm gonna do
Yep.
that.
Yep. And again, if you often get the whole I've tried that, I've tried that, I've tried that, then your intake form is what have you tried?
Right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How many buttons have you pushed? And then I'll make sure we don't bother pushing those buttons. Or by the way, did you know you pushed the button wrong?
Right.
Right. So, you can say all due respect, but you might have gone about this in the wrong sequence or whatever. So here's how this is going to roll.
Yeah.
Agreed? Right. And then I just find that saves 1,000 problems.
Yeah.
And so like with my team, like there's one girl who's been with me for 9 years and one who's been with me for literally less than 9 months. So 9 months was having a hard time communicating with me.
Hmm.
And I sent her to go talk to 9-year person. I'm like, you need to talk to her and she will tell you how not to screw up our conversations. Because like we're not, I've told you 1,000 times and it's not getting through. So she's going to tell you. And then that way it's not me. She doesn't have the pressure of like the, boss employee kind of relationship that can kind of throw things off. So sometimes you divert that way and you
Hmm.
get another party to kind of come in. And it was amazing, right? It
Cool.
solved a
Hmm.
lot of problems. But coping is like, it's more than just problem solving, right? It's awareness.
Sure.
So you know what makes you angry. Awareness. Coping is expectations and boundaries, right? Awareness is this particular thing makes me really nervous, right?
Right.
Coping is what is my trigger phrase to get me out of it. So it's either I can handle this or what am I going to do about this? Whichever one I
Hmm.
need to, because sometimes there's nothing I can do. It's just something I need to endure because there's nothing to be done, right? You lose someone close to you, right?
Hmm.
Can't do anything about it. Nothing you can do about it. It's only to be too endured. So you're just like, so what do I need in these kind of
Yeah, so
situations?
that's a coping mechanism because it's not really
Mhm.
problem solving. So that's
Nope,
different.
that's not.
So if you lose
Exactly.
somebody, a pet, loved one, whatever, you're coping with it.
Mhm.
You're dealing with
Yep.
a different
Yep.
situations. So that's why when I'm hearing the word coping, I don't know if it's really problem solving. It's like,
It leads to problem solving. Problem solving is an output of coping. It is a way of coping because sometimes you don't need problem solvings, Joey. Sometimes you need assurance and you need comfort and you need a
hmm,
whole fuckload of deep breathing,
hmm,
right? Because that's what you need to. There is no thinking that you need to be doing to get yourself through this particular situation. Like when I get into like overactive mode, the worst thing I can do is go faster. The exact thing I need to do is go slower.
oh yeah, you and me
Right?
are on the same page there. Like I have my Calm app every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay,
Yep.
I'm going to go do my meditation or my Calm thingy
Mm-hmm.
and slow down, take away all of the thoughts that are happening constantly in my brain. So I've been, that was a problem for me before. It was like, I don't understand how to meditate. What are you talking about? I can't slow everything down. I
Mm-hmm.
can't shut my brain off. But
Mm-hmm.
learning, because that was, again, how am I going to cope with all the stuff going on in my life? Well, I need to learn how to meditate in my way. And then I
Mm-hmm.
learned in order
Mm-hmm.
to shut and slow down my brain because I was always great at the way I used to cope. I still do. I still cope this way, if you want to call it that, is I just go sleep. I have a power nap. Like that's exactly what I've been doing for 25, 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things are not going well, going to take a nap. And then
Mm-hmm.
everything calms right down.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, at that last moment when you're waking up, I'll go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should do that. Right. So it's like,
Well, it's smart actually because 95% of the decisions we make are done in our subconscious,
subconscious mind.
which is when
Yep.
we're not awake or we're
Right.
not aware, right? And so your physiological response to stress and going
Yeah.
to sleep and feeling tired is very, very common in terms of over stress or over anxiety, right? So
Hmm.
my son, whenever he has a panic attack, my ex, when he had his panic attack, it was always followed by sleep. They
Hmm.
had to sleep. And so, when my kids were small and my ex would have one of these, I knew I'll take the kids to the park. you just hang. I know you need to rest because it's just taking so much energy to go through these things. They're really quite
Right.
debilitating.
Right.
And so, but what they're also really good for is that quiet and calming effect that it has on your body and on your mind, so that that subconscious can come through and just say, okay, Joey, like this is what you need to do,
Yeah, 100%. Like I've been selling that for years, like
Mhm.
25, 30 years. Like honestly, I
Mhm.
always like when I was talking, I one of my first masterminds back in 2012, there was I forget her name now. Whatever her name was, Victoria or something. Anyway, she taught uh Oprah like how to meditate, and she was trying to help me meditate, all of us meditate at that point. That's when I first heard about this meditation thing. And she
Mhm.
just goes, you have to be in the now, like present and now, and shut everything
Mhm.
off. And I couldn't really
Mhm.
understand what that meant.
Mhm.
But then when I would explain what my process was in order to deal with whatever was going on, I would tell everybody, look, I take 20-minute power naps. Like
Mhm.
literally there's a timer, so I don't go over, so it wakes me up.
I
But
do the same thing.
I'm awake, okay? So for like 15 minutes easy. Like I can feel it counting, and my brain is still on fire. It's going everywhere. Now, for the last 5 minutes, I don't know where it goes. Like the last 5 minutes feels as though, wow, it's been an eternity, and all of a sudden I wake up with the answer, like almost
Mm.
every single time. But it's in that last 5 minutes when I actually go into another alpha state or something like that. My brain goes into theta waves, like whatever you want to call it, that goes there, and my subconscious peeks through and goes, "This is the answer." Because why am I
Mhm.
going to sleep or to power nap? Is because I'm in a problem, because I'm in an
Mhm.
anxiety thing. What's going on? I can't handle this right now, right?
Mhm.
But so my brain is. I can't shut that off when I go to sleep. I can't just focus on my breath. I try, but now it's like my brain is going on, and that's what happens to me every single time. So I attribute it. I know this, like subconscious. I mean, I understand that fully.
Mhm.
That's where
Yep.
all of my breakthroughs happen, is
Yep.
in those moments of sleep
Yep. And
every single
so
time.
understanding that the time at which you are most open and responsive to new ideas is right before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
That is a coping mechanism for feeling a little bit lost, feeling worried, anxiety, all those kinds of things. So, one of the greatest strategies that you can do is go to bed. Like, say, for instance, I'm like, is this book launch going to work? Right? Was this a good idea? Is anyone going to
Right.
buy it? I don't give a shit. Um, I go to bed thinking, look at all the speaking gigs I have from it. Look at all the opportunities that I've gotten from it. Wow, this is amazing. And I spin this yarn for myself that it's already done. It's completed. Like
Mm.
everything is wonderful and it's great. Now, I have no clue what I'm going to do, but I'm acting and I'm creating this whole vision for my brain to chew on while I'm sleeping of it's already being done. So that
Right.
when you wake up, you actually have more of the ideas, right? Because your brain has been actually working through it while you've been in dream state. And so, there's once you understand how the brain works and how the body works and the connection between the two, and our ability to actually, make it all very malleable and very plastic and bend it to kind of be more supportive for us because we create either a basket full of feathers or a bucket full of nails and we pick which one of those things we get into, right?
Yeah.
So the bucket full of nails is all of the self-deprivation, the self-depreciation, the whole I don't deserve things and nothing's going to work and everybody hates me and I'm going to go eat worms, right? The basket full of feathers is okay. I mean, they're going to poke you every once in a while, but by and large, it's a much better place to live, right? Because you're choosing to say, okay, even though this really hard and heavy thing I'm dealing with right now, I'm going to land okay. I've
Yeah.
created a soft landing for myself. I had a nightmare once because I always think dream interpretation is quite fascinating. I have no idea if this is true. So all dream people out there and dream cynics, fire away.
I'm fascinated by
Um,
it.
oh,
Fascinated.
it's super cool. Nobody understands it. Anyway, so I had this dream. I was in a helicopter and it was crashing, and I was very frightened. And there was nothing I could do, but it landed in and I'll never forget this. I still remember it landed in very tall, very green, lush grass, and it just kind of bounced along. And I'm like, I woke up and I'm like, well, that was interesting. So I just Googled it and I'm like, dream of crashing the helicopter, landing on something soft. What the heck? And the interpretation that I got, true or not, but I kind of thought it was neat, is that whatever I'm going through right now is very scary, frightening, and a little bit uncertain, but I also know I'm going to be okay.
Right.
I thought that was cool. So I'm like, I'm taking it.
100%.
Right? Like that kind of works. So,
100%.
like this whole conversation has been like doers and draggers. And the difference is almost nuance, right? It's, are you a complainer and a blamer, or are you someone that just doesn't know how to crack through? Like I deal with people who think they are not deserving of going above the station in life in which they've been born. And they've been told that for 50, 60 years. And I help them break out of that. It takes
Yeah,
a
but they're willing to break
long time.
through.
They're willing. They're
Okay, so
committed. And again,
that's
remember, I only take the 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10s on
yeah,
commitment.
that's a huge
This
difference.
person was just like, I'm out, I'm done. And it is gonna take some pretty explosive changes for her. But she's smart. Her coping mechanism is to create groups to surround herself with. She's creating her basket of feathers, right?
Like,
So
okay,
even if she goes sideways, she'll land okay. Sorry, go ahead.
For an example, I don't know if this is like, so could you see yourself, forget the money part that you get paid large money, but could you see yourself as like a therapist or a psychiatrist who's dealing with the same problem over and over and over and over again for years? Could you see yourself in that position?
Well, I mean, I play that position to a very unqualified state. But one of the things that I do is the way that I create my coaching program is so that I don't repeat myself. So if there's a repeating pattern, I create a video training, put it into the video library that I have,
Yeah, but
and it comes up, they go there. So I create ways and methodologies so I'm not actually repeating myself, but there are repeated patterns, if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking,
Sorry.
forget all the technology, and you have to sit there and listen to the same thing again and again. You have to be there.
Okay, so what's the question?
You can't put a video on. Like, you're not going to go to a psychiatrist's office and they're going to go, I've heard this before, watch this video, I'll see you in 50 minutes. They're not going to do that. Okay? So you have to be there. You have to hear the same thing again and again. And 7 years go by and the person has not moved whatsoever. I cannot see myself in that position. It's not that I don't care about that person, but it's like, holy crap, let's go. Let's do something here.
No, and again, here we come down back to boundaries. They can only stay in my program for so long before I
forget the programs, Rebecca. I'm just asking the philosophical question, like a whole bigger question of, do you see, forget the programs, because we all know how we can deal with the program parts of it. But I'm just asking, like, what type of a person are you? Because you said, oh, I'll deal with that, with people like this, to a point. Like, again, I don't know how to explain this. Like, to a point, I will deal with somebody's pattern again and again of saying that I'm not going to do that, or I'm stuck in this, whatever. And I'll get to a point where, like, look, let's go, or just go on to somebody else. Like, move on to somebody else who can help you, because I can't help you. So I cannot see myself in that role of repeating victimization of themselves or whatever, like constant. Even though I know I can help them break through, or they say they want to break through. That's what I'm asking. Is because I can do the same thing. I can easily create programs and videos and go, just go watch this and pay me over forever. And that's not kind of cool. When you're ready to jump, I'm here. That's not what I'm saying. It's more about, like, who are you as a person? And for me, it's about a doer. It's a doer who's like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's just do this. I'm leaving that alone, and just tell me what to do, and I will go do it.
Yeah,
those are the people that I can help with the most.
Well, those are the people anybody can help. Like, those are the 3% that are, like, ready to go. You don't have to convince them. They're like, they're throwing their money at you. They're the easy ones to get. There's just not many of them, right? There's 60% of people at various degrees of information searching, and then decision making. Those are the ones that you have to cut through and figure out which ones are committed to themselves and which ones are committed to complaining. And that's through your intake process, it's through your onboarding process, it's through expectations and boundaries. And sometimes they're going to slip through, and you've got to be able to see them for what they are, and you got to cut them out. I don't have infinite patience for those people. If you're asking me if I'm the kind of person who will have infinite patience for someone, the answer is absolutely not.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
what I'm
do
asking.
not.
Like, so,
But
like a
that's what I'm saying. Like,
psychiatrist
I
would
have a
have
limit.
that. You're like
A
getting paid, doesn't
psychiatrist,
really matter.
well, sometimes, but I have also had psychiatrists I've talked to. They're like, yeah, we have to cut people off. They
Really?
don't
Okay.
want to make a change, or they lie.
Yeah.
Right? Like if a client comes in and lies to you, like see you later, like go away.
True.
So no, like, and anyone who has any kind of a business, therapy or psychiatry or coaching or whatever, you need to be able to know when to say no, and when to be like, I'm
Yeah.
not your person. Like I've had people that come to me and I'm like, you don't need me, you need a therapist.
Yeah, that's kind of where this, like, I wanted to start this conversation where, like, my realization was about it is, like, I've gone through different iterations of, like, okay, who are the people? What do they look like? Where's my superpower fit in? And that's really it, is, like, understanding who am I best fit for so that I can, like, clean up and eliminate those that I can't help and move them on to somebody else. That's what really, this conversation was starting to, where the thought was around, because of the inner work that I've done in the past
Mhm.
couple of months of like, I'm just going to step into this because this is where my
Mhm.
superpowers are, and
Yep.
stop pretending to try to, fit into this other category of
Mhm.
helping, a dragger trying to become a doer, but really not. And they're still in that dragger mode. I'm like,
Some people love it. They love being there. They love complaining. They don't want to change. And they do the blah blah blah. Oh, I want to change. No, they
yeah,
don't. No, they don't. Because a couple of scratches on the surface there, and there's nothing of value. And again, sometimes they slip through, and sometimes they get in, and you just got to know, like, this isn't something for you. So that's why I put a lot of work on my onboarding process. Like there's multiple calls, there's an assessment, there's another call, and then I let you in.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Sometimes I will let people join a call and test it out. Right. So join one of my peer coaching. We did that last week. So a gentleman wanted to join my program. He'd never had a coach before in his life,
mm,
totally in his own way. But easy to, in my mind, easy fixes all along. And he's very determined because, 6 months ago, he was in a situation and I'm like, so, hey, how's it been the last 6 months? Changed? No? Oh, do you want to coach now? Or do you want to wait another 6 months? And we'll have the same conversation in 6 months, right? Anyway, so he came to one of my sessions because he'd never had it before, and I wanted to see how he did. I wanted to see if he participated. I wanted to see what other people would say. And he signed today, right? Because that was a good experience. And he felt very much like that would benefit him. And then I got feedback from others because I was just like, hey, give me the intel on the new guy. What do you guys think? And they're like, super needs to get out of his own way. We can totally help him. Everybody's on board because that's part of what the coaching program I bring to the world. It's not just me. Everybody becomes like a certified
sure,
coach, basically,
yeah,
in my methodology. And then they train each other. So, you just get really, 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 really good at the beginning of figuring out where people are at. Like, I know I'm not for newbies and note takers,
exactly.
wallflowers and complainers, silver bullet
Hmm.
seekers, please go away. Just tell me what to do. Please take that door out. I am telling you what to do. Allow me to help you with these instructions. So you listen for language. Your assessments can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And then just, keeping a close eye on it. We just get better and better over time.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. You're right. Like I thought that I wanted people who also, like you just said it, like tell me what to do. And I'm not, I can tell you suggestions, but I don't want the cognitive load on me either. Because
mhm.
there's a lot of people who will just sit back and go, tell me what to do so they can blame you if things
Yeah,
don't work out. And so I'm
exactly.
I'm not that person. Let's brainstorm together here, dude.
Mhm.
Like or go read this book, or I got this idea. Why don't you think about these things? Like, so that's not what I'm there for. I'm not
Mhm.
there to give the actual. It's not that I don't have steps. Not that I don't have frameworks and all kinds of stuff to do.
Yeah, I have all those things.
But there's been a lot of along the way. Is like, just tell me what to do, and
Mhm.
then not only that, they don't even go do it. So it's like, go do these things. Got it. And then for like 3 months, it's the same thing. What are you doing? I'm having trouble with this. Didn't I tell you to do that last week? Did you do that? No, not yet. Go do that this week. And it's the same
Mhm,
thing again and again and again and
mhm,
again.
mhm.
Like, okay, this is not, it's not
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always help people out, like, because a lot of people who come into my program, they are really good at what they do. And so they want to turn it into some sort of a education platform. And I have a whole list of questions. And I'm like, okay, do you have a really good idea that you want to pick up and implement into someone's business? Oh, yes. Great. That's called consulting. Do you like to be a part of the process and working with people, but you have patience for when people kind of go up and down and sometimes they don't do the work? And if you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds really cool, because consulting requires you to do work. This is why I don't do consulting. I am inherently lazy. I don't want to do your work. I don't want to do any work. I don't know. I want to do this, and I want to be like, bye, you go do your right? I don't want to do it. I just don't. I tried that at the beginning 5 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, no thanks. So I just don't. But I love the people who get, a little bit stuck on that wall, because I'm like, oh, I am getting you. So as long as they're
Yeah.
committed, I
Yes.
will like beat them around the bushes to get around. And I, 9 times out of 10, I get success.
That's right.
But then there's also teaching, and then there's podcasting, then there's speaking, and then there's training, and then there's Q&A drop-ins, like what's his not Dan Martell does, right? Where you just kind of drop a golden egg on people, explain what you're doing, tell them what you're testing, do some Q&A, and see you later the next week, right? And then you come back. So there's all these different ways that you can do that. And I can't remember why I started telling you about this. I had a point, and now I can't remember. But it was a good point. Anywho, oh yeah, I was
It's
telling you about the different ways that I try to help people figure out what kind of help that they want to give to people, because it comes down to how much time do you want to put into each client, and how much money do you want to make. If you're like, I just need to make 50 grand a year, there's lots you can do with that one. But if you're
oh
like, I
yeah,
want a
for sure.
$1 million enterprise, well, then yeah, they got to go coaching big time and full time, or you got to go consulting,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because the other stuff just is tough to monetize unless you have volume. Like if you already got, like Dan Martell already had a big following, so going from 0 to 600 clients was easy for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as easy for people who are, not at that level of celebrity or the level of connections that they have. You got to build up to that, right?
Right.
That's an
Right.
earned position. So it's just a matter of like understanding what people want. But again, it's what's important to you and what you
Yeah,
want
I think
to
the
do.
first part of it is like really understanding who you can help, like
Mm-hmm.
and where your superpowers are, because I went through
Mm-hmm.
that whole, should I be a consultant? Am I a coach? What kind of coach am I? And I love problem solving. I encourage everyone now to go bring me a problem. Go create a problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a solution, or let's figure out something out. Go do it, and then go create another problem out of this, and let's figure this all out together. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at, because the
Mm-hmm.
only time they're creating more problems is when they're actually doing the stuff. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't do it, because one solution always creates another problem. There's always something else that's going to come up. So
Oh
like, okay,
yeah,
well, let's
get
figure
it.
this out. But if they're not
Mm-hmm.
moving, then they're not doing anything, and they're getting stuck in
Mm-hmm.
the loop. So
Right.
what else do you want me to tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you, how long do you want to brainstorm this one thing? Like I'm that person in a corporate environment. If I was at a frickin' table and on the
Mm-hmm.
whiteboard and they're like meeting after meeting, I'm like, guys, it's been 10 minutes. Pick one of those damn things and let's go execute. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'd be the guy. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
fired probably within the next week, because that's
Mm-hmm.
not what we do here, Joey. We like to have
Mm-hmm.
meetings after meetings, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not me. Pick one of those
No.
damn things and let's go. Right?
Yeah, and again, this comes down to the setting of expectations, right? So before someone comes on with me, I'm like, every 30 days, we're doing a 30-day action plan, which is split by
Yeah.
week, which is what you're going to do that week. Then there's a Slack channel called What Are You Going to Do This Week? Then there's a daily momentum channel of What Are You Going to Do Today? So,
Yeah.
so we bit of an action theme going on here, because if you're going to sit there and do nothing, I will blow you up, right? And
Right.
it's not going to be pretty, and you're not going to like me. We won't be friends, and I like to have fun. So, your choice. And there are some times where people they get stalled out, and they
Well,
get,
yeah.
I don't
Granted.
want to, and I hear that I don't want to, and I'm like, okay, you little angry tyrant, we need to get rid of that anger and give it another place to go, or at least recognize that that's what it is, latent anger,
Yeah.
that you're not dealing with. and that's what's getting in your way. So I
Yeah,
can't
but you see,
help you get out of your
that's where
way.
adaptability comes in for me. Like
Mhm.
I'm not a drill sergeant. Like, sorry, you don't want to do it, then you're going to be kicked out. No, that's not what I'm doing, and I know that's
Mhm.
not what you were insinuating. But at the same time, for anybody listening, is like that's where again, you and I think we do that really well because
Mhm.
it's like, well, that's coming up, and thank you for being vulnerable about that, and thank you for telling me the truth. Let's deal with that.
Mhm.
But it's still, in my mind, it's still a doer. It's still a doing, moving forward. You're not
Mhm.
doing the thing that I just said, like this one task or whatever it is. You're not doing that project because you don't want to do it for this
Mhm.
other reason. Let's figure that out. It's when that
Mhm.
person says, "No, I'm not going to do shit. I'm just going to sit back and do nothing." That's a
Oh,
drag.
then you blow them out of the water.
Yeah,
Then
that's
you're
just
like,
like, no,
eject button, beep.
let's do something here,
I like those
right?
eject buttons. I always want to kind of work a taser into the computer system so it tases you when you're not paying attention.
Sounds
Like
like you and I are on the same page here, Rebecca. This has been amazing as always.
that was fun.
Everybody loves you, just like I love you. Now you know why I love Rebecca so much. Good seeing you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It's been a cool
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. So we'll have you. I know we got you booked in here another couple weeks or something like that.
Oh my God.
So we'll see you back here again as always.
Okay.
Have yourself anything that I didn't ask you or mention that you kind of
No,
want to.
no, I never know where these conversations are going to go. So the doing versus dragging, really fun. I mean, the only thing I could encourage any listener is, learn how to cope, learn emotional resilience, um, get yourself figured out in terms of being aware of what situations, environments, or people can kind of set you into an emotional, flare up. Because those flare ups of intense emotions will distort how you see the world, and the longer you live in those distortions, the longer you believe them to be true, and they're not. And that's the danger of what would actually turn a doer into a dragger, because that can happen too, where you have this distortion. I was meeting with someone recently, and she was talking about having bought a whole new wardrobe full of clothes, and they still have all the price tags on them. And I'm like, how long, again, my favorite question, how long have you felt this way? And she's
I
like, just,
love that question.
it is a powerful one. She said, just the
Wow.
past couple of years. And what's happened the past couple of years? Well, there's been a family situation in which she was been targeted. You're too much.
Yeah.
You're the problem. It's your fault. I don't like you. Like those kinds of phrases
Yeah.
for years, and they have finally gotten through to her, and now she has become a lesser version of herself. So, for the folks out there who it's happened to me, I get blamed a ton. I'm too much for people. I move too fast, I talk too loud, I laugh too much, I don't care, I don't notice, I insult people by accident, I swear a lot. It's going to piss somebody off somewhere. But the point is, um, what I suggested to her, and I suggest to everyone, if you have lost your way and you want to recapture it, find something that reminds you of that time. So she had a ring that she stopped wearing because I guess she'd lost a lot of weight and she needed to get it resized. And I'm like, how long ago did you take that ring off? She's like, 15 years. And I said, put it back on. She's like, well, I need it resized. I said, then get a chain and stick that motherfucking thing on your neck, and don't have it be the whole, I didn't wear this because I felt bad. No, no, no. You wear this because it reminds you of the person you were when you wore it 15 years ago. And that becomes your power talisman, right? That allows you to be like, this is who I am. And it's incredibly powerful when it is something you can actually put on yourself. So Oprah Winfrey, when she started her interview, she was very nervous about it because the whole format was brand new. She basically invented it in terms of the way she does it. And she wore purple high-heeled shoes because it made her feel confident, right? Martin Luther King did not need his eyeglasses. They do not have a prescription, but he felt more confident and powerful and listened to when he wore them. So he wore them. They're in the Smithsonian now. So there's all these things you can do to pull yourself out of dragging into doing. Even if you've been a doer, you've dragged and you want to get back, there's always a path that can lead you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
But you have to be 9 or 10 committed. You have to be saying, I don't want to be here anymore. There is no complaining allowed in the house, no blaming left in the house, you or other people. I can't blame anybody. There's just, what are we going to do about it? What's the path forward? So
Have
that's the
you
only
read?
thing.
Have you read? I know this is. I don't want to get into this discussion because I know this can take us down a whole other rabbit hole. But have you read The Alter Ego?
Yeah, right there. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
like the Alter Ego is amazing.
Mhm.
Maybe we can have a discussion around that, and then
Sure.
also that along those same lines, Dan Martell, because you mentioned him a couple of times.
Hmm.
He mentions about the 10x version of yourself, or the 10.0
Hmm.
version of yourself,
Hmm.
where it was like, when did you feel like amazing? So go
Hmm.
back, even if it's back in time. So for me, when I started my first business and I went from 0 to 5,000 in customers, there's no internet, like that kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, how did I do that? Like, how did I feel? What was I doing back then? And understanding what your 10.0 version. So I think that there's a framework that you and I could easily create here, or some kind of a merge, because you talked about
Hmm.
merging as well. It's like, take the alter ego, which is, the whole ring thing, if you want to take it, or an
Hmm.
artifact that push you
Hmm.
into a
Hmm.
mode that
Hmm.
says, I'm going on the field and nothing's going to
Yeah.
stop me, right?
Hmm.
And take the 10.0 version of yourself and merge those two ideas together and see what you can come up with. What do you think?
Yep. No, I absolutely. I'm always there merging shit, but like this is my cup, because
Wonder
Wonder
Woman.
Woman is my alter ego, and that's why I have it. So I have it for the days when I'm not feeling confident. I'm not feeling like I'm really, can I actually do this or whatever. She stood for all the cool things. Also drove a cool car. It was invisible. That was neat. And 1984 notwithstanding, the recent movies have been good. So
I
yeah,
liked 1984. It wasn't bad. You know who my alter
mm,
ego is?
mm,
Atlas.
mm.
You know
You know what my
why?
favorite book is? Atlas Shrugged. So,
Mm.
mm,
See, I love Atlas because I have an like, basically, he carried the weight of the weight of the world on his shoulders, right? So I take that and go, you know what? My job is, I
mhm.
take the weight of all of my clients' problems and situations on my shoulders. That's my job, is to help them navigate through this. So I'll carry as much with you and help you
Mhm,
through that. So that's why for me, it's like, I'm Atlas. When you can't handle it, I'll be able to handle it for you, because I ain't
mhm,
giving up on you.
mhm,
Yeah, I'm not giving up. You're the only one
mhm.
who's going to give up. You
Yep,
can't
this
quit.
atlas, it's a crystal ball that
Oh,
sits
I
on a
love it.
silver atlas, and it sits on my desk. Sits in the
Yes.
corner of my desk all day long. That's what I look at. That's my
There you
atlas.
go, right? So you see,
Yep.
like, we're
So you
we're
can see.
proving what we're
We
talking about
totally get
here,
it. We
right?
totally get it. Well, this has been fun, Joey. So looking forward to the next one that I'm on. That'll be
Me
super
too.
fun as always. But yeah, I appreciate you
Yeah.
taking the time with me today.
Same here. Thank you so much. Have yourself an
You're
amazing
welcome.
night. YouTube, by the way, thank you for watching us. Next week, again, same time, same bat channel. It's Tuesdays, every Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We're here. Amazing discussions. Thank you for being here live, and we'll see you next week. Take care,
You're welcome.
Rebecca.
Okay. Bye, Joey.
Bye.